Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars through the main window. The ship moved quietly through space near the border between human territory and Zephyrian space. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, keeping peace between humans and aliens who did not seem to want peace at all. The Zephyrians were big lizard-like creatures who loved to fight. They had sharp teeth and cold yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. For the past 20 years, they had been testing human patience with small attacks on border colonies. Each time they did something bad, Earth would send diplomats to talk. The talks always ended with humans giving the Zephyrians something they wanted just to keep the peace. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat at her station monitoring communications from nearby space. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her to catch any trouble before it got too big. Amy had joined the crew 2 years ago, fresh from the academy where they taught officers to solve problems with words instead of weapons. "Captain," Amy said, turning in her chair, "I'm getting a distress signal from New Denver Colony." Jake walked over to her station. New Denver was a peaceful farming world with about 50,000 people living there. Most of them were families who had left Earth to start new lives growing food for the outer colonies. "What kind of distress signal?" Jake asked. Amy pressed some buttons and the message played through the bridge speakers. The voice was full of fear and pain. "This is New Denver Colony calling any human ships in the area. We are under attack by Zephyrian forces. They came without warning. They are targeting civilian areas. Please send help immediately." The message cut off with the sound of explosions in the background. Jake felt his stomach turn cold. Attacking military targets was one thing, but going after civilians was against every rule of war that civilized species followed. He turned to his communications officer. "Lieutenant Brad Collins, get me a connection to Earth Command right away." "Yes, sir," Brad replied, his fingers moving fast over his controls. While they waited for the connection, more messages came from New Denver. Each one was worse than the last. The Zephyrians were not just attacking the colony, they were destroying it completely. They were bombing schools and hospitals and places where families lived. "Sir," Amy said quietly. The last message said they were specifically targeting the children's areas. Jake's hands turned into fists. He had seen many bad things in his years in space, but attacking children was something that made his blood boil. The Zephyrians knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to hurt humans so badly that Earth would give them whatever they wanted. Commander Lisa Park walked onto the bridge. She was Jake's second in command and had been in space even longer than he had. Lisa was calm in every situation, but when she heard the messages from New Denver, her face went hard. "How long until we can reach New Denver?" Jake asked. "At maximum speed, about 6 hours," Lisa replied. "And how long until Earth Command can get us orders?" "Probably 12 to 15 hours, sir. You know how the diplomatic process works." Jake knew exactly how it worked. Earth would want to talk to the Galactic Council first. Then they would try to contact the Zephyrian government. Then they would hold meetings and send messages back and forth. By the time Earth decided what to do, New Denver Colony would be nothing but burned ground. Another message came from the colony. This time it was from a doctor at the main hospital. "The Zephyrians are bombing the medical centers. We have hundreds of wounded children and nowhere safe to take them. If someone doesn't help us soon, they're all going to die." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. These were good people who had joined the space service to protect human colonies. They had weapons that could stop the Zephyrian attack, but Earth's orders were always the same. Wait for diplomacy to work. "Sir," Amy said, "I'm detecting Zephyrian ships leaving New Denver's orbit. It looks like they're heading back to their territory." Jake walked to the main window and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Zephyrian ships were flying away from a destroyed human colony, probably laughing about how easy it had been. Their commanders would report back that humans were too weak to fight back. The attack would be called a great victory. "Lisa," Jake said without turning around, "how many Zephyrian ships attacked New Denver?" "Sensor data shows it was a single battle group, maybe 12 ships total." "And how many ships do we have in our task force?" 15, sir, all fully armed and ready for combat." Jake turned around and looked at his crew. For 200 years, humans had been the peacekeepers of the galaxy. Every time someone attacked them, they responded with talks and treaties and gifts to keep the peace. The other species saw this as weakness, but Jake knew the truth. Humans were not weak. They were choosing to be kind, but kindness had not saved the children of New Denver Colony. "Lieutenant Collins," Jake said, "cancel that call to Earth Command." "Sir?" Brad looked confused. "Amy, plot a course to intercept those Zephyrian ships before they reach their border." "Captain," Lisa said carefully, "we don't have orders to engage in combat operations." Jake walked back to his command chair and sat down. For the first time in his career, he was about to disobey direct orders from Earth. For the first time in 200 years, a human military officer was about to choose war over peace. "Lisa, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them that the Zephyrians crossed a line today. Tell them that humanity tried being nice for 2 centuries, and today we learned what that kindness cost us." He paused and looked around the bridge one more time. Every person there was looking at him with understanding in their eyes. They all knew what this moment meant. Tell Earth that Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the Horizon's Edge have decided to show the Zephyrians what humans do when we stop being kind. Tell them that as of today, the war has begun. President Elena Rodriguez sat in her office on Earth, reading the reports from New Denver Colony over and over again. The numbers were terrible. 8,000 people dead, including nearly 2,000 children. The Zephyrians had bombed schools and hospitals first, then moved on to destroy everything else that mattered to the families who lived there. But the report that really caught her attention was the one from Captain Jake Morrison. He had found the Zephyrian ships that attacked New Denver and destroyed all 12 of them in less than 30 minutes. No human ships were lost. The Zephyrian survivors were rescued and sent back to their territory with a simple message: "This is what happens when you hurt our children." The door to Elena's office opened and Admiral Ben Carter walked in. Ben was the head of Earth's defense forces and had been Elena's friend since their days at the military academy. His face was serious as he sat down across from her desk. "The Galactic Council is demanding that we arrest Morrison and put him on trial for starting an unauthorized war," Ben said. Elena nodded. She had expected this. The Galactic Council was made up of representatives from 47 different alien species, and they all believed that problems should be solved with talks and treaties, not weapons. "What did you tell them?" Elena asked. "I told them we would consider their request after we finished investigating what happened at New Denver," Ben replied. "That should buy us some time." Elena stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the capital city. Somewhere down there, families were watching the news reports from New Denver and asking why their government had not protected those people. For 200 years, Earth had chosen diplomacy over war, but today that choice felt like a mistake. "Ben, I need you to show me something," Elena said. "I need to see the files that you never talk about." Ben's face went pale. "Elena, those files are classified at the highest level. Very few people know they exist. I'm the president of Earth. Show me." Ben pulled out a small device and connected it to Elena's computer. After entering several security codes, a new screen appeared with information that made Elena sit down hard in her chair. The files showed the real strength of Earth's military forces. For 200 years, human leaders had told the galaxy that Earth had a small defensive fleet designed only to protect their own territory. The truth was very different. Earth had been building warships in secret for decades. Many of the ships that other species thought were cargo vessels or scientific research ships were actually disguised military vessels. The peaceful colony, ships that had spread humanity across the galaxy, were equipped with weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. "How many ships do we really have?" Elena asked. "About 3,000 combat-ready vessels," Ben replied. "Plus another 5,000 ships that could be converted to military use in a few weeks." Elena stared at the numbers. The entire Galactic Council combined had maybe 4,000 warships, and most of those were designed for fighting other species with similar technology. Human ships were built differently. "Why did we build all this in secret?" she asked. Ben pulled up another file. This one contained studies about human psychology and military history. Because we knew what would happen if we ever stopped holding back, he said. Dr. Sophie Wright had written most of the psychological studies. She was Earth's best expert on how different species thought and behaved. Her reports explained why humans had chosen to hide their true military power. Humans had evolved differently than most alien species. Where other species fought for territory or resources, humans fought for ideas and survival. When humans went to war, they did not stop until their enemies could never threaten them again. This made them very dangerous in ways that other species could not understand. The Zephyrians think they won a great victory at New Denver, Ben said. They have no idea what they actually did. Elena read through more of the files. Human military doctrine was based on something called total war. When humans decided to fight, they did not just attack enemy military forces. They studied their enemies, completely learned their weaknesses, and then destroyed their ability to make war ever again. Ben, if we decide to fight the Zephyrians, how long would it take? To defeat their military? Maybe 3 months? To completely destroy their ability to threaten anyone? Maybe 6 months. Elena felt sick. She had joined politics to help build a peaceful galaxy where different species could work together. Now she was being forced to choose between letting the Zephyrians kill more human children or unleashing something that would change the galaxy forever. Her secretary knocked on the door. Madam President, the Zephyrian ambassador is here to see you. The Zephyrian ambassador was a large creature named Skylos, who had been representing his species on Earth for 10 years. He walked into Elena's office with the confident stride of someone who thought he held all the power in the room. President Rodriguez, Skylos said in his hissing voice, my government is very upset about Captain Morrison's illegal attack on our ships. Your government attacked a civilian colony and killed 8,000 innocent people, Elena replied. That was a military operation against human expansion into our territory, Skylos said. Your Captain Morrison's response was an act of war. Elena looked at the alien ambassador and realized that he truly did not understand what he was saying. The Zephyrians thought they could kill human children and then demand that Earth apologize for fighting back. Ambassador Skylos, Elena said calmly, I want you to go back to your government and give them a message. What message? Tell them that for 200 years, humanity has chosen peace because we understood the cost of war better than any species in this galaxy. We have seen what we become when we stop holding back. We hoped we would never have to show the galaxy that side of ourselves. Elena stood up and walked around her desk until she was standing directly in front of the ambassador. Tell your government that they have forced our hand. Tell them that humanity tried being nice and today we learned that kindness is seen as weakness. Tell them that Captain Morrison was just the beginning. Skylos seemed confused. Are you threatening the Zephyrian Empire? No, Elena said. I am explaining to you what your attack on New Denver has already set in motion. She walked back to her desk and pressed a button that connected her to Admiral Carter's headquarters. Ben, activate Protocol 7. Even through the video connection, Helena could see Ben's face go white. Protocol 7 was the code for mobilizing Earth's hidden military forces. Elena, are you sure about this? The children of New Denver Colony are dead because we chose to be kind instead of strong. I will not make that mistake again. She turned back to Ambassador Skylos, who was still standing in her office looking confused. Ambassador, you should return to your government immediately. In 72 hours, they are going to see what the human military actually looks like. I suggest they prepare themselves. After Skylos left, Elena sat back down at her desk and began writing the speech she would give to the galaxy. For 200 years, humans had been the peacekeepers. Today, that ended. She began typing. To the species of the Galactic Council. For 2 centuries, humanity has chosen diplomacy over war because we understood what war truly costs. Today, that choice was taken from us. God help us all. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge as his ship approached the Zephyrian homeworld of Skylos. Behind him followed the largest human fleet that had ever been assembled. 300 ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels and research ships had revealed their true nature as warships designed for one purpose: to end wars permanently. The Zephyrians were expecting a normal siege. Their military leaders thought humans would surround their planet and demand surrender after a few bombing runs. They had no idea what was actually coming toward them. Commander Lisa Park walked up to Jake with a report in her hands. "Sir, our scout ships have mapped every Zephyrian military installation on the planet. We also have complete information about their command structure and communication networks." Jake nodded. Human intelligence services had been studying the Zephyrians for decades, pretending to be diplomats and traders while actually learning everything about their military capabilities. The Zephyrians thought they were dealing with peaceful merchants. They were actually being analyzed by the most advanced military intelligence network in the galaxy. "What about their fleet?" Jake asked. "Most of their ships are in orbit around Scalos, about 200 vessels total. They're arranged in a defensive formation that would work well against any other species." Jake smiled grimly. Zephyrian military doctrine was based on fighting other alien species who used similar tactics and technology. They had never faced an enemy that studied warfare the way humans did. Lieutenant Amy Foster turned from her communication station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet commander." "Put it on screen." The main viewer showed a large Zephyrian with scars across his face and cold yellow eyes. This was General Krathos, the same commander who had ordered the attack on New Denver Colony. "Human commander," Krathos said in his hissing voice. "You will withdraw your fleet immediately or face the consequences." Jake stepped forward so the Zephyrian could see him clearly. "General Krathos, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. I want you to understand something very important." "What is that, human?" "For 200 years, my species has chosen to be kind to yours. We have absorbed your attacks, accepted your insults, and negotiated peace every time you violated our territory. Do you know why we did that?" Krathos laughed, showing his sharp teeth. "Because humans are weak and afraid to fight." "No," Jake said calmly. "Because we knew what would happen if we stopped being kind." Jake gestured to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Tony Blake, show General Krathos what human kindness has been protecting him from." Tony pressed a series of buttons on his console. Across the human fleet, weapon systems that had been hidden for decades suddenly came online. Energy readings that had been carefully masked now showed their true power levels. Ships that the Zephyrians thought were lightly armed science vessels revealed massive weapon arrays. The look on General Krathos's face changed from confidence to confusion to fear as his sensors showed him what he was really facing. "That is impossible," Krathos whispered. "Our intelligence report said humans had only a small defensive fleet." "Your intelligence was looking at what we wanted you to see," Jake replied. "Today you get to see what we actually built while you thought we were weak." Jake turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Alex Coleman, begin the demonstration." Alex selected one of the smaller Zephyrian ships in the defensive formation. The human fleet fired a single coordinated shot from their kinetic weapons. The Zephyrian ship simply disappeared, turned into atoms so small that the explosion looked like a brief flash of light. "That was one shot from 1% of our fleet," Jake said to the shocked General Krathos. "We have enough firepower here to turn your entire planet into dust. But we are not going to do that." "Why not?" Krathos asked, his voice much quieter now. "Because despite what you think, humans are not monsters. We are going to give you a choice." Jake nodded to Commander Park, who began transmitting data to the Zephyrian fleet. "We are sending you the complete files from New Denver Colony," Jake said. "Video recordings of your ships bombing schools and hospitals. Audio recordings of children calling for help. Medical reports showing exactly how your soldiers targeted civilian areas." Jake paused to let this information sink in. "General Krathos, your government told you that New Denver was a military target. Your government lied to you. You destroyed a farming colony and murdered 8,000 civilians, including 2,000 children." The general's face showed confusion and then growing horror as his staff showed him the files that humans had sent. "This cannot be true," Krathos said. "It is true. And now you have to decide what kind of person you are," Jake replied. "Are you a soldier who follows orders, or are you someone who murders children?" Jake could see other Zephyrian officers on Krathos's bridge, looking at the evidence from New Denver. Some of them were showing the same horror that was spreading across their general's face. "Here is your choice," Jake continued. "You can fight us and watch your entire civilization die in the next 6 hours. Or you can surrender your fleet and help us arrest the leaders who gave you illegal orders to attack civilians." "And if we surrender?" Kratos asked. "Then we will treat you according to the laws of war. Your soldiers will be prisoners until this conflict ends. Your officers will face trial for war crimes. Your government will be replaced with people who understand that attacking children is not acceptable behavior." Jake gestured toward the planet below them. "General, we have been studying your species for 200 years. We know your culture better than you think. We know that traditional Zephyrian warfare has rules about protecting civilians. We know that your own military code says that targeting children is dishonorable." This was true. Human sociologists had learned that most Zephyrian soldiers actually respected codes of honor that were similar to human military traditions. The current Zephyrian government had abandoned these traditions, but many soldiers still believed in them. "Your government has been lying to you about more than just New Denver," Jake said. "They have been telling you that humans are weak and that other species will support you in a war against us. We are going to show you how wrong they were." Jake nodded to Amy, who began broadcasting on all frequencies that Zephyrian ships could receive. The transmission showed messages from across the galaxy. Every major alien species was announcing that they would not support the Zephyrians in a war against humanity. The Crystalline Consortium, the Void Runners, the Depth Lords, and dozens of other species all sent the same message. Zephyria was on its own. "Your allies have abandoned you because they know something your government does not know," Jake said. "They know what humans are capable of when we stop being diplomatic." General Kratos looked around his bridge at officers who were clearly shaken by everything they had learned in the past 10 minutes. "What guarantee do we have that you will honor the terms of surrender?" he asked. "The same guarantee we gave every species for the past 200 years, Jake replied. "When humans give their word, we keep it. That has never changed." Jake walked closer to the main screen so that Kratos could see his face clearly. "General, your government sent you to fight what they thought was a weak enemy. Instead, you found an enemy that has been preparing for this war longer than your species has existed. You can die fighting a battle you cannot win, or you can help us build a galaxy where no one else's children have to die the way the children of New Denver died." General Kratos was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was full of sadness and shame. "Captain Morrison, the Zephyrian Third Fleet surrenders to human forces." The news of the Zephyrian surrender spread across the galaxy in less than 12 hours. What happened next surprised every species except the humans. Instead of celebrating their victory, 3 more alien governments decided that humanity was now weak from fighting the Zephyrians and launched their own attacks. The Crystalline Consortium attacked human mining operations in the Outer Rim. The Void Runners began raiding human trade routes near the Galactic Center. The aquatic Depth Lords emerged from their deep ocean worlds to claim human colonies with large water resources. What these species did not understand was that the war with the Zephyrians had been a test case. Humans had been preparing for exactly this situation for decades. Captain Ryan Hayes commanded the newly revealed Titan-class dreadnought Silent Thunder. The ship was 3 times larger than any vessel the galaxy had ever seen, and it carried weapons that had been developed in secret research facilities hidden throughout human space. Ryan stood on his bridge, watching the Crystalline Consortium fleet approach. The consortium ships looked like giant jewels floating through space, beautiful and deadly. For 500 years, these crystal ships had been considered invincible because their hulls could absorb and redirect most energy weapons. "Captain," said his weapons officer, Lieutenant Kelly Martinez, "the consortium fleet is moving into attack formation." "Do they have any idea what they're facing?" Ryan asked. "No, sir. Their intelligence about human military capabilities is about 200 years out of date." Ryan nodded. The consortium had made the same mistake as the Zephyrians. They thought human diplomatic ships were the same as human military ships. They were about to learn the difference. "Kelly, activate the resonance disruptors." The weapons that humans had built to fight the crystalline consortium were not energy weapons at all. Human scientists had studied crystal technology for decades and discovered that crystalline structures had natural frequencies that could be exploited. The resonance disruptors created sound waves that made crystal hulls vibrate until they shattered. From the inside, the battle lasted exactly 6 hours and 23 minutes. The consortium fleet of 80 ships was completely destroyed without a single human casualty. The beautiful crystal vessels that had dominated their region of space for centuries broke apart like glass hitting concrete. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Morgan was leading human forces against the Void Runners in a campaign that showcased humanity's most frightening military characteristic. They never stopped hunting their enemies. The Void Runners were a nomadic species that lived in space and never stayed in one place for long. Their strategy was to attack quickly and then disappear into the empty regions between star systems where no one could follow them. This strategy had worked against every other species they had ever fought. It did not work against humans. Chris commanded a fleet of pursuit ships that had been disguised as long-range exploration vessels. When the Void Runners attacked human trade convoys and then fled into deep space, they found human ships following them with a patience that no other species had ever shown. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Danny Cooper from the navigation station, "the Void Runner fleet is changing course again. That's the 7th time in 3 days." "Stay with them," Chris replied. "They're starting to panic." The Void Runners were used to enemies who gave up the chase after a few days or weeks. Humans had been following them for 2 months now, tracking them across multiple star systems with sensors that could detect ship exhaust traces weeks after a vessel had passed through an area. The psychological effect on the Void Runners was devastating. They were a species that had evolved to avoid long confrontations, but humans seemed willing to chase them forever. Void Runner crews began surrendering rather than continue running from an enemy that would never stop hunting them. The campaign against the Depth Lords was different because it took place mostly underwater. The Depth Lords lived on ocean worlds and had never been defeated in their own environment. They thought that surface-dwelling species like humans would be helpless in deep-water combat. Captain Susan Reed led the first human amphibious assault teams against Depth Lord installations. Susan and her Marines used technology that had been developed for exploring Earth's deepest ocean trenches. The Depth Lords discovered that humans could fight just as effectively underwater as they could in space. "The Depth Lords are retreating to their deepest city," reported Sergeant Carl Wright from his underwater combat suit. "They don't understand how we can operate at these depths." "Keep pushing," Susan replied through the waterproof communication system. "Show them that there's nowhere they can go that humans can't follow." The Depth Lords had expected human forces to stay near the surface where most species were comfortable. Instead, they found human Marines fighting effectively at depths that should have crushed any surface dweller. Human technology allowed their soldiers to operate in environments that even the Depth Lords found challenging. But the most shocking discovery for all 3 alien species came when they realized that humans had been studying them for potential conflicts for decades. Dr. Nathan Phillips worked with Human Intelligence Services to reveal files that made alien military leaders understand just how thoroughly they had been analyzed. "Every species in the galaxy thinks that human diplomats and scientists were just curious about their cultures," Nathan explained to a group of captured alien officers. They were wrong. The files showed detailed studies of every alien military, doctrine, complete maps of every alien territory, and specific plans for defeating every major species in the galaxy. What had appeared to be human scientific curiosity was actually the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. The Crystalline Consortium discovered that humans had been studying their crystal technology for 50 years and had developed specific weapons to counter it. The Void Runners learned that human exploration ships had been mapping their hidden bases and tracking their movement patterns for decades. The Depth Lords found out that human oceanographic research had included detailed studies of their underwater cities and defense systems. "You have been preparing to fight us for generations," said one captured consortium commander. "We have been preparing to defend ourselves for generations," Nathan replied. "There is a difference. The tide of war turned completely within 6 months. Species that had dominated their regions of space for centuries found themselves outmatched by humans who seemed to understand warfare on a level that transcended anything they had experienced before. The Crystalline Consortium existed only as scattered refugee fleets begging for sanctuary from other species. The Void Runners had retreated to the very edge of the galaxy and were sending desperate peace offers through neutral intermediaries. The Depth Lords had returned to their deepest ocean cities and refused all contact with surface species. What shocked the galaxy most was not just that humans had won these wars, but how quickly and completely they had won them. Every alien military expert had predicted that these conflicts would last for years. Instead, human forces had systematically dismantled 3 major military powers in less than 6 months. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humans had been holding back for 200 years, and now they had stopped. The peaceful diplomats who had spent centuries negotiating treaties and keeping peace were revealed to be the most effective military force the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Ben Carter stood in the command center on Earth, watching reports come in from across human space. Every major threat to human security had been eliminated or neutralized. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries, but it was a peace enforced by human military power rather than human diplomacy. "Sir," said his aide, Colonel Patricia Adams, "we're receiving surrender offers from 12 more species who weren't even involved in the fighting." "They're scared," Ben replied. "They realize that if we could defeat the Consortium and the Void Runners this easily, we could defeat anyone." Ben looked at the tactical display showing human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. For the first time in history, one species had enough military power to enforce peace on everyone else. The question now was whether humans could resist the temptation to use that power for conquest rather than protection. 1 year after the attack on New Denver Colony, President Elena Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Council in their new meeting place. The Council had moved their headquarters to a neutral space station far from any homeworld because they were no longer sure which planets were safe from human military power. The representatives of 47 alien species sat in their special chairs and listened as Elena explained the new reality of galactic politics. Some of them looked angry, others looked scared, but all of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. For 200 years, Elena began, humanity sought peace through diplomacy and compromise. We believed that rational beings could solve their differences through negotiation and mutual understanding. We were wrong. Elena looked around the chamber at faces that belonged to species from across the galaxy. These were the same representatives who had demanded that Captain Jake Morrison be arrested for defending human civilians. Now they sat quietly and listened to whatever humans had to say. "You mistook our kindness for weakness," Elena continued. "You believed that our desire for peace meant we were incapable of war. You were wrong about that too." The Zephyrian representative shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Zephyrian Empire no longer existed as an independent government. After their military surrender, humans had arrested their war criminals and helped the Zephyrian people establish a new government that understood the difference between military targets and civilian populations. The attack on New Denver Colony killed 8,000 innocent people, including 2,000 children, Elena said. That attack was not a military operation. It was terrorism designed to force humanity to surrender through fear and grief. Elena pressed a button on her podium, and the chamber's main screen showed images from New Denver. The pictures of destroyed schools and hospitals made several alien representatives look away in shame. "Today I am announcing humanity's new policy for maintaining galactic peace," Elena said. "Any species that attacks civilian populations, commits genocide, or engages in unprovoked military aggression will face the full response of human military forces." The Depth Lord representative raised one of his tentacles. "President Rodriguez, are you saying that humans now claim the right to police the entire galaxy?" "I am saying that humans now accept the responsibility to protect innocent life throughout the galaxy," Elena replied. "For 2 centuries we tried to lead by example. We tried to show other species that problems could be solved without violence. Instead, our restraint was interpreted as invitation to attack us." Elena walked away from her podium and moved closer to the alien representatives. Every species in this chamber knows what humans are capable of when we stop holding back. The Zephyrian Empire learned this lesson. So did the Crystalline Consortium, the Void Runners, and the Depth Lords. We hope that no other species will force us to teach them the same lesson. The representative from the Stellar Federation, a group of peaceful trading species, stood up. President Rodriguez, how can we be sure that human military power will not be used for conquest instead of protection? Elena had expected this question. It was the same concern that every human leader had been struggling with since the war began. Because humans have something that no other species seems to understand, Elena replied. We have the ability to choose restraint even when we have the power to take whatever we want. Elena gestured toward the main screen, which now showed a map of the galaxy with human territory marked in blue. Human space covers less than 15% of the galaxy, even though we now have the military power to conquer any territory we choose. We could have taken the Zephyrian homeworld, but instead we helped them build a better government. We could have enslaved the Crystalline Consortium survivors, but instead we offered them refugee status on human worlds. This was true. After each military victory, humans had surprised their enemies by offering help instead of demanding tribute. Zephyrian civilians received human medical aid and food supplies. Consortium refugees were given homes on human colonies. Even Void Runner prisoners were treated according to the laws of war rather than being executed or enslaved. The difference between humans and every other species, Elena said, is that we understand the cost of war. We have seen what we become when we stop being civilized. We choose to be better than that. Elena returned to her podium and looked directly at each alien representative. The galaxy now exists under human protection, whether you like it or not. You can choose to see this as conquest, or you can choose to see it as an opportunity to build something better than what existed before. Elena pressed another button, and the screen showed construction projects happening across human space. New hospitals, schools, and research facilities were being built not just on human worlds, but on alien worlds that had agreed to work with human authorities. We are offering every species the chance to join a new kind of galactic civilization, Elena said. One where disputes are settled through law instead of war. One where no species has to fear that their children will be murdered to make a political point. The Zephyrian representative stood up. This was General Krathos, who had surrendered his fleet to Captain Morrison and now served as the representative of the new Zephyrian government. President Rodriguez, Krathos said, the Zephyrian people accept human leadership and request membership in this new galactic order. One by one, other representatives stood up and made similar statements. The Stellar Federation requested membership. The Peaceful Worlds Alliance requested membership. Even some of the more aggressive species requested the chance to prove they could follow the new rules, but not everyone was ready to accept human authority. The Void Runner representative, speaking through a translation device, hissed his response. The Void Runners will never bow to human authority. We will retreat to the galaxy's edge and wait for your empire to fall like all empires fall. Elena nodded. That is your choice. But understand that human patrol ships will be watching the edge of the galaxy. If Void Runner ships cross into inhabited space with hostile intent, they will be destroyed. Elena looked around the chamber one final time. For those species who choose to work with us, we offer protection, prosperity, and the chance to build something better than what came before. For those who choose to remain hostile, we offer the same thing we offered the species who attacked New Denver Colony. Elena paused to let this sink in. We offer them the choice between peace and defeat. There are no other options. After the council meeting ended, Elena returned to her ship for the journey back to Earth. Admiral Ben Carter was waiting for her in the conference room with reports from across human space. How are our people handling the transition? Elena asked. Better than expected, Ben replied. Most humans understand that we didn't choose this role. It was forced on us by species who couldn't tell the difference between kindness and weakness. Elena sat down and looked at the reports. Human patrol fleets were now stationed throughout the galaxy, monitoring for signs of military aggression or civilian attacks. It was the largest peacekeeping operation in galactic history. Ben, do you think we made the right choice? Ben was quiet for a moment before answering. Elena, we tried doing things the diplomatic way for 200 years. It got 8,000 of our people killed, including 2,000 children. I think we made the only choice we had left. Elena nodded, but she still felt the weight of what humanity had become. They had proven they could dominate the galaxy, but at the cost of becoming something they had never wanted to be. Dr. Sophie Wright had written a final report about humanity's transformation that Elena kept on her desk. The last paragraph said, "We have become what we feared most, the galactic hegemon, but perhaps that was always inevitable. We tried to lead by example, and they interpreted our restraint as invitation. Now we lead through strength and pray that future generations will forgive us for the choice we were forced to make." Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of his new flagship watching the stars that now existed under human protection. Commander Lisa Park walked up beside him and asked the question that had been bothering both of them for months. "Jake, do you think we'll ever be able to go back to being the peaceful species we used to be?" Jake thought about the children of New Denver Colony and all the other innocent people who had died because humans chose diplomacy over strength. "Lisa, I don't know if we can go back," he said. "But I know we can't go forward by pretending that being nice is enough to protect the people we care about." Jake looked at the tactical display showing human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. Every ship represented the choice humanity had made, to be strong enough to protect innocent life, even if it meant becoming something they had never wanted to be. "The galaxy wanted to see what humans become when we stop being kind," Jake said. "Now they know. The question is whether we can find a way to be both strong and good, or if strength always comes at the cost of who we used to be." The stars continued to shine in the darkness of space, watched over by human ships that carried the burden of keeping peace in a galaxy that had forgotten how to choose peace for itself.